Hello and welcome back to the cave. Most of what I've been doing recently has been digital, but I'm really excited to announce that I'm just starting the series that I've been promising for a while, involving this little mini here. You'll be seeing plenty of her shortly, where we're going to go from day one painting and what you might expect as a beginner, and then using the same miniature gradually take people through their development of the hobby. So this is session number 1, which is going to be very basic. There won't be any varnishing, there won't be any undercoating, there won't be any washing. It's just a basic miniature with a basic set of paints. So things that I have, you've got a cork. I've actually, on this one, glued a base to the bottom of it, but that bit's not so important, with some blue tack on the top. With the blue tack, you really want to manipulate it a lot when you're going to use it. Here we go. This is really interesting because I'm looking at the camera, but I'm trying to do this, therefore, just by touch. And then back on the top there. Then we get our miniature. And just, there we go. Put it on the nicely manipulated blue tack. Now what you've got is a handle that you can use to paint your miniature. You can buy all sorts of fancy handles. I've got some on Thingiverse that I will put in the link that you can 3D print if you have a 3D printer. Mine are designed to hold a coin in the bottom. Here's one I made earlier. Coins in the bottom, so you can see similar size and shape to my cork, which is what I based it on. It's got ridges in the top. No, you can't see them through all the gunk. Put that back on. This is using something that a YouTuber called Ninjon recommends, which is archivist's wax. I'm not such a big fan myself. I'm finding it a bit messy. I prefer blue tack. It comes off more cleanly. So, bit of blue tack again. It's something you may well have at home. It's not something specialised. You can pick it up anywhere. You don't, certainly at this stage, need to worry about any fancy kind of holders. What I'm working on the logic is you've got a basic set of paints. I have the basic Vallejo set, as you can see in the background. If I take that out, they may focus. I'm not going to refocus the magnifier. Come back down. So it's a set of 16 paints by Vallejo Paints. There's a link. It's not an affiliate link. I make no money from it in the description, but any basic set will do. Vallejo make very good paints. You may have a Citadel basic paint set. It could be Army Painter. Army Painter tend to be on the cheaper side, so you may want to go for that. The set isn't relevant. It just gives you a good starting range of colours. I've just kept this, so all we're using is that basic set. I'm using a sheet of greaseproof paper as a palette, baking paper, wax paper, whatever you want to call it. Got a pot of clean water. I've got a cheap, basic synthetic brush that I'm going to use. It's always a good idea. Most brushes come with this cover. Keep the cover, it protects your brush. You want to protect and look after your brushes. Synthetic ones are very cheap, they're a dime a dozen. But when you start moving on and you get more expensive ones, such as this Raphael, which was about £8, then you don't want to be killing them any more quickly than you need to. That one's also a very small brush. I'm working with a larger one on this, just a 1.0, a number 1, because again, that's far more likely what you're going to get with your set. So we have miniature, we have paint, we have water, we have brush. So let's turn on the lights and get ready to go. One there, round the back there, and that one. There we go. And switch to our magnifier. Ooh. Get that tuned in right and pull that out of the shot so it doesn't focus on it for you. So here we have the 3D printed character. There again, there'll be a link on Thingiverse to this miniature. This miniature was painted on an Anycubic Photon Ultra, if anyone's interesting. I haven't really done much cleanup, which would be considered fairly naughty, but this is your first miniature. One moment. That's better. But the idea with this one is it's your first mini, you're really excited, you want to paint it, so you're not waiting to do any of the fancy stuff. Okay. So, start off with, when painting, always when painting, start with the furthest away stuff. Ooh, there, you can see what I'm doing better. The furthest away stuff. Yes, sweetheart? Yes. So that when you're painting the stuff in front of it, there's less chance you'll go under the stuff behind. So, as is frequently the case, skin is a good place to start on there. So you always want a wet brush. So start off just by getting your brush wet. I'm also going to get, when you have got something, a bit of tissue paper for cleaning and drying. My brush, this is just a standard kitchen towel. You don't need anything expensive or fancy. And then, what do I have along here for flesh? Bronzed flesh tone. There we go. Ooh. I wonder how many times I'll do that by the end of the video. So, paint needs a good thorough shaking. And I'm going to do that off camera. When you first get new paints, they need a lot of shaking. You can hear the rattling. That's because I've put a couple of ball bearings in the paint to help it mix. Vallejo doesn't mix badly, but I haven't used these paints in a while. I tend to use things like scale, colour, scale 75. I've got their complete set, or I've also got the complete set of Monument Hobbit Use Pro Acryl. So, bit of colour. Now I'm only putting a couple of drops down, I don't want to waste it. A lot of people will use far more. Now that is too thick. We look over here, don't have a close-up of it sadly, but you can see it kind of forms peaks as I go through it. So I'm just going to get some water in my brush, a couple of dollops just beside it there, and run it in to thin it down. You don't want it super thin. If you can see here, it's just thick enough that I'm not getting any dollops anymore. I'm not going to paint with that. Clean it up again. dry it off a bit. Pick up some paint. Again, just wick off a little of the excess so you have more control. And then down to the miniature. Holding your brush, it's like a pencil. The closer you are, the more control you have. I'm holding it quite a way back so that you can see what I'm doing. And I'm just going to lightly, trying to be careful not to go too much over the other areas, lay down a good layer of paint. And this paint is fairly thick, and it's certainly laying down fairly thickly. What you want is the layer to be even. So as you can see, this is pooling. So I'm just going to keep working that in. And then I'll come and pull some of that off in a moment. Now, this paint is what's known as opaque, which means it should create a solid layer. You're after multiple coats that are nice and thin. As a well-known painter would say, 2 thin coats. I wouldn't say that thin. But you don't want the excess you can see here, because that will start to hide detail. Now this is your first mini, so that's not the end of the world, but why not get it right from the start? So this magnifier is designed to try and show you close to what I see as I can. I'm tweaking it slightly and trying to paint more at the angle you'll see, which is tricky. So once you see it there, just give it a minute or two to dry, but that's fine because we've still got the rest of the miniature to cover. Now there are areas where you won't be able to not get it on the layer above. That's why we're doing this first. See, there was a layer bubble formed in there. Pull that off. Pick up a little bit more paint. I'm actually going to wick it off with my thumb. Different people have different techniques. Some people don't like having paint on their hand. I have a bad habit of, I will basically lick the end of my brush to keep it more stuck on it, to make it moist. Though these paints aren't toxic, a lot of them taste really bad. So this bronzed flesh is not the greatest of flesh colours. It'll look a bit better after a layer or two. Right now you've still got a lot of grey showing through, and that's what we want to go away. I'm probably not going to talk this much through all of the paint layers. Some of this will be accelerated. But while we pick up the basics on this one, it's not a bad idea. Now I'm working through a magnifier here for 2 reasons. 1, I'm old and my eyes are knackered. 2, it's a good way of making sure I'm trying to get the camera angles for you to see. As the camera is that way. The angle of your mini is not important, as is where possible you actually want to keep painting in the same direction. I'm not going to talk much about brush physics in this one. We're just going to get some paint on our first mini because we're really excited about it. And I know certainly I was super excited when I first did it, and my first minis, which I no longer have, because this was a long time ago. And I thought they were the best thing ever at the time. Now I would probably question that logic. But painting is one of those nice hobbies where you actually develop the early skills very quickly. Just doing the foot here. Trying to avoid. Ooh. Let's come further back on the brush. Might see if I can find a better way of mounting this camera. Really on the other side. I will have a play ready for next time. So this miniature was created in a piece of software called Heroforge. I have a large number of videos, both giving tutorials on it and doing quick flicks through my process. So you get to see the entire build in about 3 minutes. There is a dedicated playlist for those if you want to go and look for it on the channel. And as always, if you're finding this useful or liking it, please click the like button, subscribe so you can find the rest of the videos in this sequence. You can see where it's a little bit patchy at the moment. That will go away with the second layer. If you hit the little notification button, so the bell, then that will let you know every time I release something new. We also are on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. We have a dedicated Facebook, a dedicated Discord server. There isn't a Patreon or a paywall behind any of that, so feel free to come along and join us. And any adventures or maps I create will be finding their way onto Pay What You Like, so you can pay nothing, on Drive-Thru RPG. And the maps in their raw form are usually done on a piece of software called Dungeon Alchemist. Teach me for trying to be this clever on the design. Can't get back there that easily. It's going to be really fun on some of the more advanced ones. They'll have been cleaned up a bit to help. Resin is fairly brittle, so I need to be cautious. Now the reason I'm just using a bit of baking paper, normally I would use something called a wet palette, but I'm trying to make sure I'm using the same tools that you would be at this stage. So a piece of baking paper is something you've probably got at home. A wet palette comes later. You can make your own. I could have made this into a makeshift wet palette by just putting some damp paper, damp toilet paper or kitchen paper underneath it. Bits to get that close, always a challenge. So that's the first layer done. As you can see, as I was saying, it's a bit patchy. A lot of the grey is still showing through. Some of it's actually thickening up a bit, so I'm going to bring a little bit more water in before I do the second layer. Keeping your paint at the same consistency. What a wet palette does is saves you needing to spend so much time keeping your paint. And then come back and start over the same areas again. And you see me do this once, so I will accelerate through this while I do it. But you'll see the entire process. It just won't all be in real time because that would be very boring for you. Okay, that's second round done. As you can see, you've got a lot more solid colour there. I'm actually going to do a third because there were some areas such as the face that's still not as good as I'd like it to be. One thing you find on some miniatures is they come separate to their base. If your miniatures from the Games Workshop, you may have to build the entire thing. Now, if I'd been sensible, this would be on a base, so off the base, so I could go up inside to paint the inside fairly easily, whereas on the base, that's considerably harder. And so, something to take into account. Let's quickly do this last bit. As we're not doing anything to tidy this up or make it look better, getting a good base colour on this one is fairly important, because that is going to be the base of your miniature. Ooh. I have a cunning plan, I think, for the camera next time. We'll see if it works. I completely reorientated this camera before this was recorded. Though it's working better for me, it's not necessarily working better for you. So again, you want to be very careful not to put too much on, because you don't want to hide your detail. That's why it's multiple thin coats, not one thick coat. It's always far tidier. And always let your paint dry before you do the next coat. Now, the advantage with the acrylics that we use is they dry very, very quickly. Though I do have an air dryer beside me for certain tasks where they're really heavily watered down. I think I'll buy that for $1. There we go. So, just clean off the brush. In really good run around of the water, and then clean it off. There we go. So one colour done. So the next bit is probably the main dress, which I'm going to go for a dark green. Try and show it to the magnifying. It's not there. I'll try and clear that over again. Take it like a madman. And again, a couple of bits down there. Water. Don't worry that it looks like it's slightly dirty. I do usually have two, one dirty, one clean. But for this project, that's not really needed. Same logic as before. Water it down a little. Dry it off. And then pick some paint up. Just wick off the tip so you've got control. different paints have different natural opacities. Green's not too bad, oranges and yellows are notoriously, and reds, thin. See how much easier this is going on. Oh, see there? Now you can just clean your brush off as I just did, and very quickly just come in and clean that up. Or, as when I'm doing more mainstream painting, you can have a second brush available to do it. But that's fixed that. Back to our pop colour. Wick it off a bit. And back to laying it down. Don't worry about parts you can't reach. If you can't reach them, you probably can't see them. If you can't see them, nor can anybody else, so why worry about it? Sometimes you can't reach them easily, such as the stuff underneath. Don't worry about it too much, especially at this stage. I'm going to take a bit under there. You just need to be cautious that you're not damaging anything that's more visible, basically. It's all well and good to try and make sure that these areas are really nice. But the areas you really care about are the ones at the front. Down here, just being cautious to edge it along the edge there. Find a way over some of the bits we painted over, but that's fine, and our second coat will probably solve that. Move to the back. Now, I created this mini for running this project ages ago. You can see, again, being really cautious, taking it right up to the edge, but making it just nice and tidy. Normally, I would have my hand far closer to the end of the brush for this. Then you wouldn't be able to see anything. This is another reason to re-angle all of this. But it's like everything in life, a learning process. What you're trying to do is keep it even. You'll see there's a bit of patchiness coming in. I'm just going to come through and even it out. Again, the second layer will help with that. Don't go, oh well, I'll just do one. I'll make it thicker. It doesn't matter. It does. Your miniature will not be anywhere near as good. Patience. Patience is a virtue, apparently. My wife, on the other hand, says she's not a doctor. She doesn't need patience. This makes me laugh because she is a secondary school, high school teacher for any Americans. So needs masses of patience. Not a job I could do. I know, I tried. At a slightly older age range. Eek. See what I mean about getting paint where you don't want it. So just clean your brush off, and yes, I am sucking on my brush to do that. There we go. This is because I'm trying to get those areas that no one is ever going to actually really see. God, if the first coat for that. And now, slightly more careful with this. And the first coat on her top. So looking at the back, that strap actually isn't part of the top. Not for a little. It's part of the leather harness she's wearing. So you do have to try and differentiate against the different materials at times. And it's not always easy. I have less excuse because I designed this miniature. Now these back areas are somewhere you can come forward and backwards, forward and backwards. Because you keep getting one bit on one bit on the other. So to be careful and try and avoid it in the first place. And when you do, you can clean it up. So first coat done. Also remember that what you're seeing on camera is magnified a massive number of times. The actual real thing is far smaller, so some of the details that you'll be noticing and going, ooh, actually can't be seen in the real world. So second coat. Now with the second coat, I'm not going to go back and try and redo all the really difficult areas. There's colour there, that's all I really need. This is where I'm messed up. Am I in time to clean it? Yes, I am. I can always go back if I need to. Just grab a little of skin. Just bring that back in to tidy that. A lot of the really good work you see from painters isn't that they've got it perfect the first time, it's the fact that they've been prepared to go in enough times to clean up all of the mistakes they've made. and they know all the little hints and tricks on how to do it. I do not consider myself a master painter. This doesn't work too badly when I remember to get my angling right. The camera works quite well. There we go. Always looking at the miniature from lots of different angles. Make sure the paint's got everywhere. Yes, it goes grey underneath. I can't get to it cleanly. I've got to get to that bit better. And it would take someone heavily examining your mini to find that. Now what I could have done is gone in and done that green first, so that I could just splat it all around under there, then come and done the orange on top, and then come and done this green after that. The splat it all around technique does not want to be done with a good brush. You will destroy the head of it. And also goes deep. Made more mistakes there than I thought I had. May have to put some skin back on that to get it back to tone. So just quickly pick a bit of skin. See a little bit that looked a bit grey, so I tidied that up while I was doing it. There we go. So, and we're starting to come along somewhere. Now for ease, I think I'm going to do the leather next. Leather brown. That's what it says on the tin. Again, water, we're going to need to thin it down. I'm not doing anything fancy on this, like darkening the colour, which I normally would. This is still very much your first mini. Exactly the same as we have been doing. Wick a bit off. I'm not going in and doing minor details differently. What I might do, if I was doing this miniature properly, would be to go in and do a different colour for the thread on this pouch. cheeky glitches around the back that I haven't done. It's annoying. I'll go back and fix that in a moment. And this is a complex mini, but it was designed to be, because it needs to cover a wide range of skill levels. If your mini is complex, don't worry, paint it anyway. It's a learning situation. It's going to be hard. Under there, sorry, I'm struggling to give you an angle where you can see on that, but it's a case of I'm trying to find an angle where I can get to it. There we go. Quickly, while I think of it, go back and fix the bit of skin that I see I missed. Just angle it there, round the back there on the tail. So I'm looking in and back very carefully. I'm just trying to get the look without splashing too much paint elsewhere. I'm going to have to come back and just retouch that slightly. But we're only on the first coat of that anyway. So this leather is a little paler than I would like. Which wouldn't be a problem, because normally I would then darken it by using a wash. But as I'm not using a wash on this miniature, that doesn't help much. And so I'm doing the belt a different colour, but her shoes will be leather. And these I'm trying to hit more with the side of the brush, because I don't want the tip of the brush to find its way into the grooves. When you know what you're doing and you're comfortable, this actually takes a lot less time than it appears from what you're seeing here. I'm just taking it very slowly and steadily so that you can see what's going on, and because I'm not using any of the later techniques. So this is what you're going to get. Because there'd be a number of techniques that will tidy things up a bit, this will probably be done a lot more quickly. Also, this is a very finicky model. but I've only got myself to blame for that. And I'll take myself out and beat myself up later. The more complex and detailed the model, needless to say, the longer it takes. The more cautious you need to be. That's why you'll find a lot of models made for wargaming as opposed to character models made for role-playing are relatively simple, so that you can paint them very quickly. A lot of people then make them a lot more complicated because they don't want to paint them quickly, but they are designed that you can just do it fairly fast. Give that a moment to dry, and while it does, I'm going to come up and redo the second coat on this higher stuff. And the green bit will get a third coat. We'll see. She's not looking too bad, is she? Off onto the foot, so clean it up. I didn't do a second coat on the feet, but I do want to put just a little bit. More in there. So, we're winning. I'm going to do the belt next in black. By doing the belt in black, just means with the amount of green on it, it'll work fairly easily. It also has the advantage. It's a neutral colour and will fit with pretty much everything. Never forget the advantage that you need to go over the top of lines. Something a lot of very early painters do. So they forget that their lines have tops, and you can see that line of grey on the bottom. And they get left. A little bit down there. Underside. It's the little details that actually make a good miniature. You can be the world's greatest painter, but if you miss out the details, and this miniature is very much about the detail. Now this is a tricky part. Can actually get the brush in. Just going to let that dry for a moment while I work out why my phone's network connection. I have a suspicion I know why my phone's lost network connection. I suspect my wife has knocked me out downstairs. Luckily I'm not live streaming this, and I just did something very, very stupid and went and used all the paint to try and tidy that up, which is why it looks so bad. Clean it up, get the right paint, come back, there we go. So there she's going. Beastly brown. We'll put her on her shoulders. Each time we do something, it's usually getting smaller and smaller. So, usual, let's just thin the paint out a little, clean the brush, dry the brush, collect some paint, wick it off. Now I'm going to try and avoid getting her hair as much as possible, because her hair is going to be tricky as it is. Make sure I'm getting right down to the end of this, and that I'm not leaving the end the same colour as the skin or anything like that. Now what I'm actually going to do is replace the colour I've used on her necklace to this brown because it's darker, and the leather isn't really showing. There we go. Looking at that, my skin, lift that bit off there. There we go. Get the right paint. Just so now I can see exactly where I'm coming. Normally I'd have a wash or something, or some highlights that would show that slightly better to me. Guess we're not doing that on this mini. So on most minis, this coat would just be considered your base coat. The technique is layering. Layering? No, that's a different technique. Too much liquid on there, so I'm just going to pull it off with the brush and let the brush soak it up. Sponge. There we go. Please bring it all back on. Now, I apologise for the amount of this video where my hand has been covering the mini. I will be addressing that to make sure it doesn't happen. I just haven't quite worked out how yet. Right, now I'm going to do her blade, I think. No, I'm going to do her hair next. bright yellow. Saying that, I'm going to say that's what our flesh is. Again, normally what I would do, I wouldn't be going straight for this shade of yellow. I would be paling it down if this was all I had. I'd add a bit of white in, or probably a bit of bone white. Just a little bit to take the edge off it. Again, we want this thinned so it plays nicely, but thick enough that it plays nicely. You can see how thin it is and how much grey is showing through. Do the same on the other colours. It's a little on the damp side. You can pull a bit off. A bit close to a wash for my liking. But at the other end where it's slightly thicker. Didn't wick off quite enough of the liquid. Just where it comes out a little on the thin side. Try and make sure you're getting everywhere where you've got hair. Again, this is going to take multiple coats. Lots. To get it up to full opacity. Full opacity means the full strength of the colour. Whereas at the moment it's just looking like a kind of dirty brown. Dirty brown, dirty blonde. Now, usually her crown would probably be done as some kind of crystal, but in this case, not so much. I've got some down on the tail, so I'm just going to come in and clean that up a bit. Yes, there's a lot of going back and just little bits tidying up here and there. On camera the hair doesn't look too bad, but it's still damp. So while that's damp, I'm going to go to bone white and just do one of the little details and accidentally scatter bone white everywhere. It wasn't in a plan, but hey. What I'm doing here is these little bits. Clean that up right there. do where it's where it shouldn't be. No. And I'm also going to use the same bone white for her eyes. So I'm going to get a really small amount on the tip of my brush. Lots of people are terrified about that. So the base is in, and I'm just going to tidy it up as I would with other things going outside. Make sure the shape is about right. Now, all I'm going to do for the eyes on this one is the white. You can do that with any colour. Actually, no, I might. I'm going to come back, pick up a little bit of our green, because I can't cope with not having anything more. It's a good dark green. I'm going to go into the centre there and go boop. Again, tidy up afterwards. So trim it around the top and bottom. Now my yellow's had a bit of time to dry. Back to her hair for the second coat. Now I've just decided, so that anyone who's already watching this doesn't get too confused, that I'm not going to go back and accelerate it through any of these processes, so that anyone that actually wants to basically paint while you go and print off a copy of this and work at the same time that I'm doing it can do more easily. Feel free to fast forward, though of course, as a creator, I would be far happier if you watched the entire thing. Again, if you're liking this, please like and subscribe. It really helps push the channel. And as it's a fairly new channel, what I can do is very, very limited at the moment, because YouTube won't let me. These paints are done with the old range from Vallejo. New range isn't actually out yet, but it's coming any time. Probably wants a third coat in a minute, but while we're waiting for that, I'm going to go for gunmetal over silver. Silver's a very, very bright, and I might use it for her crown. Again, need to clean it like that, otherwise it's going to become gold. Go. So this is a metallic paint, which means it's got little bits of metal in it that make it shine the way metals do. These tend to be thicker and stronger. Vallejo metals are generally very good, though these are standard metals. They're really, really good ones in a special metal range. And then you do the same for the flask. You don't want too many colours on a miniature. Well, it's like anything. Rules are made to be broken. But you want to be kind of picking where you want people's eyes to be and using your colours to bring that out. Too many colours and it just becomes distracting. Now sometimes if you do things like Harlequins, and by that I mean both the Eldar from the Warhammer 40,000 universe or the French acrobats that they took their name from. They have lots of colours. But that's a conscious decision based on character type. There we go, we've got metal there, metal there. Her hair is still drying, so I'm going to go gold. Put those back and think I've got gold here. I will be disappointed if I haven't. Polished gold, there we go. You can't see it, but normally I have hundreds of paints beside me, literally. Including multiple different kinds of gold. I also have a dog who's come just up beside me to say hello. You good boy. Sadly, even if I take the camera out to a wider angle, you won't be able to see him. And he wants something. Other thing to be aware of is the colour that you see is not necessarily the colour the paint will be when it dries. This gold currently is a really, really good example of that. If you look under there, it's fairly pale, but it should dry far, far more lustrous. So let's start off with the hilt of the knife. It's going to want a second coat in a moment, but that'll do for now. and the crown. Some people will wear gloves so they can just put paint on the gloves rather than straight on their hand. Other people will have other techniques, other places that they wipe it. As you can see, my thumb does get fairly well covered while I'm painting. But acrylic is non-toxic. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it with all paints, but most hobbyist paints aren't that toxic. Check before you decide to use your hand as a palette. If the bottle has any toxic symbols on it, don't. But I would rather have a messy hand than be messing about wearing vinyl gloves any longer than I have to. I do have to wear them when I'm handling 3D prints when they're first printed. Because there's potential allergic reactions. I'm not aware of being allergic to it, but it's a resistance thing that can build up over time. And just severe allergic reactions are not something you want to mess about with. Weird mottling effect on that green, which would suggest that despite the shaking, it wasn't properly mixed and there's two colours in there that haven't mixed together properly. It's separating now. But I'm going to leave that there as a learning experience. Quickly on the hair. Do a last layer on the hair just to really try and pick it out a bit. But you see what I mean with yellows. This is lots of layers and you've still got other colours showing through. One way to resolve that, whites tend to be fairly strong and you can get very strong ones, so what I would have normally done would be to go back in and just touch everything up with white, but yeah, not so much on this mini. So that's the body of her done, but we can't forget the base. I'm actually amazed how long I've been recording for this. For something that's quite such a simple mini, but normally I'd have probably done this in about half an hour. But how fast you go, it isn't a race. You go at a pace that you're happy with and you're comfortable with. And don't let anyone tell you otherwise. You take as long for a mini as you want. You get people going, well, you shouldn't take more than an hour. You get, oh, there's an annoying trend started with some YouTubers of, okay, let's show what I can do in 10 minutes or don't worry about it. You don't need to do your mini in 10 minutes or an hour or 4 hours or however many. You can do it at the speed that you want. All I'm doing here is applying paint across the base to tidy up, hide all the various other paints. I'm making it again a stone grey. Normally I would wash this and then suddenly it would come to life. We will be doing washes in later videos, so you'll see what I mean then. It will be a very early video when I say later videos. We will cover a basic wash and then we will start looking at filters, glazing and all of that good stuff. Filters, glazing is basically using thinned down paints to add colour. So you're not retaining the full opacity, you're deliberately making bits brighter, darker to create some kind of desired effect. Next video we will introduce things like undercoating the base mini, always a good start. So in the next one we will probably do is undercoating the mini and a basic wash. Maybe a little bit of dry brushing on top of that. But it will be the same miniature, I'll just be using a wider range of paints, I won't be limiting myself quite as much. I won't be using any really advanced techniques, and it will be spray can undercoat, it won't be airbrushed. Airbrushing will come at a later date. So, the final part of any mini is the glorious moment when you go round and you do this. You put the black ring. That's it. It's done. Now, a lot of bases, if they're not 3D printed, will be black. So all you're doing is actually restoring the base to its natural composition. Even 3D printing, you don't have to 3D print on a base. Heroforge will enable you to disconnect and just print a mini separated. You've seen my tutorials for Heroforge, there you go. The funny thing is, because it was done that way, you actually have full texture on the base of his feet. Itty bit of water in that. Just get to the end of this without having to put more paint I'm getting over keen to get finished because I get to go cook and eat then. Again, this wouldn't, if it was washed, wouldn't really be noticeable. Some grey. Back in, just tidy that up a bit. Okay. And back to black. basically what I'm trying to do is use the last dregs of the paint, because it's, rather than putting out a new bit, that's what's causing me the problems here. A little bit of laziness and stupidity really on my behalf, but hey, there we go. He's done. So, turn off the lights. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you found it interesting. I hope you found it useful. If you did, please put it down in the comments. Let me know what you thought of it, what you changed, what you liked, what you didn't. If you like the mini, if you like the format, if you'd like me to do certain techniques, certain parts, let me know. Don't forget to click the like button if you like the video, subscribe, and then you get to see all of the content. Hit that notification. Join us and have a chat on Discord. Check out the pictures that come out on Instagram. There's lots of videos, lots about creating the miniatures in Heroforge, creating maps in Dungeon Alchemist. And then there's this series that's going to continue. So I hope you've enjoyed this one. And we'll fade out with the spinning version of the mini. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.